Everybody, 5:33. Welcome to the TCP Building Design Committee meeting. We have 4 members present, so we're going to start the meeting, and I'll open with a few remarks. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. The town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID-19, is following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, all public meetings are being conducted remotely. All of our public meetings are being conducted remotely, at least. This meeting will be recorded and will be able to be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after the meeting. The following information is also provided for members of the public that would like to participate in the meeting remotely. To participate remotely from a computer, please use the link that was provided in the published agenda, or from a telephone, dial the toll-free number 888-475-4499 and enter webinar ID 857-1822-1953 and the pound sign. The agenda lists all topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. Okay, with that, I would open it up to any public comment from the public. Is there anybody with us this evening that would like to comment? You can just unmute yourself and speak, or raise your hand virtually or physically. I don't see anybody here. Okay, any public comment from the members of the committee? And actually, I see Christina has muted herself, which actually reminds me that I'm supposed to call the roll before I really get into this here. So, yeah, so I'll do that now just to make sure we're all present and accounted for. Christina, are you there? I'll come back to you.
I'm
in a
here.
second.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Brian?
Yes, present.
And Dave Passios?
Yes, present.
And I'm present as well. Heather Lemieux is also with us. Heather, are you there?
Yeah.
All right. And I don't have anybody else trying to check in. I did hear from Michael Ray. He was doubtful for this evening. I didn't hear from Matt or Dave Blatt, but we'll see if they pop in. So I did not hear any, just last chance, public comment from the committee members. Okay, I don't see any. All right. So I have a sort of just almost boilerplate agenda here again. So first item is sort of input or update relative to DiGiorgio. I think at this point we've put together a pretty good list of input items. Heather, I believe it was the day of, or just the day after our last meeting, actually did finalize the contract with DiGiorgio. So, and I think you may have had some correspondence since then, Heather. So I thought maybe if you wished or willing or able, maybe to just give us an update on anything relative to that you think is relevant.
Sure. So the contract is finalized, and I had a conversation with the architect today, and it's, as you noted in the last meeting, it's someone new.
Right.
I'll just call him John Z. I will butcher his last name if I try to pronunciate that. So I basically reviewed some of the notes from your prior meeting that the committee discussed layout and such issues as where the location of certain programs would be and parking. He said all that is important information that would help him move forward. So if the committee can make some decisions about where they think the best place for certain programs would be located, such as community use on the first floor, the food pantry, etc. That would help him in putting the pieces together as far as all the locations. Time frame, we talked about in the contract 60 days, but you know, he really has to dive into the last study, which that's what he was doing next. And but he thinks, you know, it's possible probably be done sooner than 60 days for this project. So that was good to hear. And other items, we talked about separate access points, continuing with that theme for the different programs. He asked for hours of operation for each of the types of uses, which I will work on getting him. And a schedule of your meetings. So, and we'll decide when the best point of bringing John in to the next meeting, because we have a limited number of meetings that are in the contract.
Okay. Okay.
I did ask as well, because I thought this would be one piece that could be knocked off rather quickly, is to do the demolition costs. That's not something that the committee has to discuss. That's something that we did have the hazardous survey results and that information from the first phase. So that could be a cost estimate that the committee could get in the very near future. He's going to work on that.
Okay. Okay, so sorry, I'm just writing down here. All right. Okay, so he's looking for input from us relative to
Location of the different programs. So town offices, school offices, extended day, space, like community meeting room space, like if there's a preferred area, and then he'll try to put together a layout based on the committee's input, and then maybe come back with recommendations.
Okay. All right, Dave, you're unmuted if you're trying to speak.
Yep, sorry about that. I meant to put it back on after roll call.
That's okay.
In our last meeting, we had the conversation about, or we got into talking about positioning the building, accesses, possibilities of positioning of the different programs in the building. But I think the consensus was that the architects and engineers should be telling us where they think is the best location for them. I don't think personally, I don't want them to spend a lot of time on configuring a building based on what we say we want where, because we don't have that expertise. I mean, maybe they could start with that as the roadmap, but I want them to put their expertise into it and logic, and put the building or the uses together in the building in a way that makes sense based on you know, their experience with buildings of this type. That's my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I would agree with Dave. I think it's important to express our concerns, but I think that they should address those concerns, show us a draft, and I think we'll see what it looks like.
Yeah, I think we gave some high level and Heather, maybe I can just bullet that out in an email that we can forward on to Giorgio. What did you say the gentleman's name was?
John.
John, okay. John C.
C.
Okay.
Z is in zebra.
Oh, Z is in zebra. Okay, okay, yeah,
Yep.
good. I'm glad I said that out loud. So I think that we gave some sort of high level thoughts relative to positioning in the building, and then I recall what Dave and Brian said that I guess candidly at the last meeting I kind of sensed that that there's maybe 7 voices on the committee, and we might have 7 different opinions of where things should go, and that might add a level of complexity. Not that we shouldn't have any input into it, but I thought that we had kind of landed on seeing if they could sort of, if we could, with some high level inputs, sort of our concerns relative to placement, like, access for students and noise related issues and that kind of thing. If we could ask them to kind of take a crack at it, and then we can, maybe before they put pen to, maybe before they start drawing lines on in a CAD computer, that we, they present some sort of outline. And this is new information, but my suggestion would be that if they could come up with an outline form of what they're thinking, sort of words on paper, not graphically so much, that we could kind of ask questions of and maybe mull over. That would probably, I think that's going to be a more efficient use of everybody's time, but I don't know, they might disagree with that. But it seems to me like we could argue for a couple meetings, or certainly a couple hours, where we think things should go. And at the end of the day, the architect might come in and say, well, we don't want to put this there because of X, Y, and Z thing, so what are your thoughts on that, Heather? Do you think they'd be receptive to that, or based on your call, or what?
No, I think they would be, definitely. So
Okay.
maybe with the high level points, was there discussion about parking, a preference? Because we did talk about that briefly, about keeping existing parking, since, if it's in good shape. And
Yeah, well, we kind of said general, my notes are, and I can, again, Heather, what I can do is summarize this stuff in an email form so we could forward it. But
okay.
I had, my notes were, we wanted at least as many spaces as were proposed. Consolidate parking towards the school, perhaps. So if we have flexibility now with the building placement on that area, perhaps we place the building in an area and consolidate parking towards the school area, so it can kind of be more of a mixed use. So in that same spirit, kind of make a more efficient parking, maybe not so decentralized, I think is what we're going for. But having said that, we thought that it was important to have at least some parking near each of the major use group access points, to the extent that they're going to be different in the new building. So to kind of keep that in mind, and then that if we were to make the parking more efficient, that would minimize the amount of asphalt we need, kind of more bang for our buck. Decentralized parking costs more because you have more parking for the number of spaces that you need. If we could consolidate it into one larger area, we could kind of get more efficient with the, cost items like square footage and the tonnage of asphalt. So that was parking. And again, I can go through this, Heather, and kind of summarize that stuff. But
Was outdoor space, was that discussed as well?
Outdoor space for program space?
program space, community space?
Anybody can feel free to jump
I
in.
guess I would just add, we obviously want to optimize the green space and keep as much green space. It's that, again, that balance of get that required parking, but have that optimal green space.
And just a note in there that we talked about, and it's probably going to be required anyway, that there's going to be need to be a travel access around the entire building. Even if it's just emergency access, but fire department's going to need to be able to get around the entire building.
Yeah, especially for a multi-story building. Yeah. Yeah, we did say that. I didn't write that down, but we did say that. We also, yeah, and I can, these are just my cryptic notes, and I'll like I said, I'll formalize them, but we had sort of identified a couple of noise generators that, we obviously thought at the gym would be the most, stairwells, so location of noise sensitive uses might be better away from those two items. Lions Club, we thought might be good to be on the first floor because they had represented access issues with their current location. So we thought that might be a good first floor use. Access for the uses that the kids will be using. We just thought that it would be important to think through that. That'll be a major driver because you don't want your kids to have to use the elevator all the time.
Yeah, and there was kind of a split of the committee on that one because, one part of the committee was saying, well, town offices could be on the second and third floor, which puts the kids on the first floor, so they're not in elevators and stairwells. But my perspective is that one of the pluses of the existing building that everybody that is for it sees as a pro is the fact that it's all on one level, so you don't have stairwell and elevator access needs.
Right.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, and I just think of it leans towards more of the architect's design. I'm hoping that they can incorporate some of that the creativeness in there, because I think maybe you could have a wing where you have some students on the first floor, some students on the second.
Yeah.
But also I want to make sure that they're somewhat close to the gym too. It would make sense to have them close to the gym to access that if they're going to do things in there.
Yeah, but you don't want them walking through the rest of the whole building just to get to the gym.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There goes your security issue. You'd have to put a no access tunnel all the way through.
Yeah, and I think the architect's already starting to drive at that because he asked for hours of operations of all the different uses, and I think that's going to be a big. So that question that he directed at Heather seems that he's already starting to think through those type of inter relationships, which is good. And so I think So I think I'll formalize that stuff to you, Heather, and we can get that over to John, and hopefully we can get something from.
Sounds good.
Heather, how much time do you think he's going to need to be ready to come talk with us after you guys give him this information? Because I'm thinking if 2 meetings a month to get into a fall town meeting with a decent presentation as to where we're at, we can't afford to miss a single beat.
Dave, I don't really know the answer to that question. So I'd have to, once we forward this list to him, to see what he can put together. And then give the committee a timeline. That. Yeah, I'm not sure.
You kind of broke up there. I don't know if I was the only one, but
I think
So-
I got most of that. Basically, it's a difficult question to answer right now.
Yeah, yeah.
With
I
them
just
making
would
most of the
want, go ahead, Heather.
I think it was
Sorry, it was
Christina.
Christina. I was
Go
just
ahead.
saying, with
Oh,
them making
sorry.
most of the decisions, shouldn't that be faster though? Because they're not waiting our input. They could at least start it and get the ball rolling, and then we could come in with the finer details later.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think
I just want the first round coming back from them to be no later than the end of next month, and I prefer it to the first meeting, but I'm not so sure it can happen that quickly.
yeah. Time's gonna happen. It's gonna happen fast. Well, I think when we send off this information, Heather, we can ask them if they could, now that he's gone through, hopefully he's had a chance to dive into all the past study materials, and hopefully he can give us a little bit better idea of his schedule.
That's
And
what I
let's-
was gonna say. We can certainly ask them for a target date of when we'd like a first.
Yeah, and
review.
let's make sure at the end of this meeting, when we get into future meeting schedule, let's plan. Well, we'll make sure we plan our meetings out so that we can give them our planned meetings so that they can, hopefully get back to us with which meeting would be realistic, and we can give them sort of our hopes as well for that.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Okay, I think we have a plan of attack on that. Anybody else? I don't want to cut anybody off. Okay, next was the discussion of proposed warrant articles. I committed to the committee last week that our last meeting, that I would reach out to the select board. I did do that. I sent the chairperson an email that sort of summarized our discussions and our thinking and our thought process regarding the concept of having 3 warrant articles. And I spoke to Tom as well on the phone, and I don't want to go over the specifics of that conversation, but I think I did want to say in public that I think I also listened a little bit, and I thought maybe Dave Passios might give us a little input on the finance committee. I think it was last week. I saw a real brief snippet, and I meant to go back through and listen to the whole thing. I think he must have been given an update to the FinCom, and there was a little bit of discussion, I think, relative to timing. And I think that Tom, at least the select board chair, may think that a town may think we're packing in a little bit too. There might be a concern that we're packing in a little bit too much work into a short amount of time here prior to town meeting. So I thought that we would discuss that a little bit under this agenda item and see where we stand. I mean, one thing that we don't want to do, and I mean, we've said this all along, but we've obviously for a host of reasons, not the least of which being the impact of COVID-19 on the world, but everything seems to be taking a lot longer than we think it's going to take. And I don't want to kick the can down the road if we don't have to. So I certainly want to move as fast as we can on this, but I also don't want to, I don't want to set us up for, I don't want to set ourselves up for an inadequate preparation, or I don't want to set the town meeting people up for inadequate preparation. So I don't know. I raised that as a discussion item here. I didn't know if anybody had any thoughts relative to that timing. And really what I'm talking about here is timing on bringing it to town meeting floor.
I guess my initial thought is,
Go ahead, Brian.
I don't obviously don't want to upset anybody, but I feel like we follow with the timeline, and if we're able to, and the architect has done the appropriate amount of work that they feel like they have a good design and we're ready, I feel like we owe the town that information rather than sitting on it. Like we said, it's a less than 60-day agenda. It's a small list of stuff that they have to get done. So I'd like to bring it forward to the town, but I also want to have in our back pocket, be ready to pull it if things aren't lining up, if this architect needs more time. I think it makes sense to have that option. So I'm in my opinion, I feel like I want to plan to be ready, but if we need to pull it, we can pull it. And that's happened in the past historically, to pull an article or to pass over an article.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's two distinct sides to this story, as Greg outlined going into this discussion. But I agree. I don't see pulling the plug completely on it now without seeing if we can pull off, as Brian just said, getting enough information to give the town in November 2 proposals to look at. And if nothing else, come out of special town meeting with a direction of, okay, are we going to renovate this building? If we are, we already know what the cost is. If we're not, then we're going to be working towards Springtown meeting to fund an engineering and design article. At least we'll know where we're going. If we don't do anything in fall town meeting except maybe an update article, then we've gained nothing in this last go around. And Brian's correct. I mean, we need to get the articles in because the deadline's the 28th of September, but we can pull it right up to town meeting floor or pass over. And there's always going to be somebody that says you're moving too fast.
Yep.
I see a hand up with, I think it's Heather.
Yep. Go ahead, Heather. Is that you, Heather?
Yes, it is. Can you hear me fine?
Yep.
Okay. Just for clarification, so the article for the funding of the renovation, that's so to draft that article, we would need the total dollar amount. I would need to work with bond counsel. So the sooner I have that information, the better.
Yeah. We have all that information. So I think if we come out of this discussion saying that we're going to move forward with those articles, there's no reason we can't draft that language and get that to you based on the estimates that we have from that budget. So
Okay.
so
The other
I think
piece of it would be, as far as the debt exclusion amounts, we just need to work with our financial advisor too, as far as debt schedules, what those would look like, because I'm sure that's all relevant information that's going to be asked.
yeah.
Right. And Heather, you did a shallow dive, I'll call it, on that already at one point, and it did work into the policy. It's just a matter of having accurate figures for an actual article.
Yeah, I forget the dollar amount though at that time, what we used as projections.
It was
I don't
either
think
18
it was.
It was either 18 or 20 million, I believe. And you had plugged in, I believe, 30 million for the middle school. I could be wrong. Those are the numbers that are in my head.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I don't remember the numbers, but I remember the analysis. I remember Mr. Beardmore had raised that in a public comment, I think, as well, that math had been done. Okay, well, The update article is very simple. I can, if with the committee's permission, I will send a draft I will send the language over to Heather that's similar to what we've done in the past. And that'll be something to the effect of, to see if the town will vote to hear an update from the TCP Building Design Review Committee relative, and I'd probably just leave it at that. And it'll be that article where we'll give them the summary of this work that we're doing, what the cost is for the new construction, an estimated construction cost for that. That was pretty simple. Do we want to spend a minute and just make sure we have the wording that we want for, do we need to talk? Let's talk about wording for the funding article. I mean, I should have just sent you a draft of this. I didn't get to it, but we pull up a type on. Hold on one second. So I think if the town will vote to rate, Heather, you can help me if I'm, and some of this word ease will, language will be, I think, tweaked by town council perhaps, but raise, appropriate. Is there anything else we need to put in there, Heather?
Borrow or transfer.
Borrow or transfer. To see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, borrow, or transfer a sum money, and I'll just put blank, talk about that in a second, for the renovation of the TCP TC Passios building. I'm taking a crack at this and then we can all comment. For the renovation of the TC Passios building, and I think we want to reference the report that we did before. Something like it, as outlined in the Giorgio. We can specify the date. Report. And we can all, so let me just read what I have and then you guys can poke holes in it and make conditions. To see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, borrow, or transfer a sum of money of blank, and I think we can get that money. We can extract that money from the report for the renovation of the TC Passios building as outlined in the Giorgio date report. So what, the May 2021 Giorgio report or whatever it is.
Can we just put final report dated such and such? Because there was a final report that was actually dated, and I think it's
The final Giorgio report dated, and then I'll fill in that date.
And then the other half of that's going to be all the legal requirements for stating the Mass General Law for the override funding and the requirements for successful affirmative vote on a ballot.
Contingent.
Contingent, right? It's too bad I don't have my folder with me because I've got that verbiage in a couple of different forms. Any article that you put together that's going to be exempted borrowing, the wording is almost identical.
Yeah. Okay. I just put a note on to myself that we need that language, Mass General Law, override, contingent on ballot, etc. I'm assuming this goes to town council first, Heather?
Yes. But I would need to
mean,
work
but-
with bond council, which is a separate council.
Right, so they sort of both independently review it, one for a different
Mhm.
purpose. Yeah,
You know, Heather, bond council, all they really need is the number that we intend to plug into that article, correct?
Right.
Based on the estimate, so we don't have to have a fully vetted and reviewed article as much as decide what the number is that we're going after
Mhm.
for bond council.
I can get you language later tonight to kind of fine tune that.
that's fine. And then, so for the number, just so everybody's, and I don't have that report, 450 some odd page report in front of me, but the number, we have a construction cost, hard cost, and we have soft costs. So we need to add those and present a number, presumably. So that's just a very simple arithmetic task.
Yeah, Greg, early on when we got the first number that put us all on the floor, that was somewhere in the vicinity of 20 million, correct? And then after,
Construction, I don't think it included soft costs.
okay, that's what I was going to say. I
Yeah.
wanted to verify that. I think you're correct.
So
and
I don't
then
think we spent all of our time those months last year whittling down the construction costs. The
right.
soft costs kind of are what they are. You know, they're it's the stuff you need to put in the building, that kind of, and and it's architectural fees and engineering fee, to do the construction documents and to do the construction administration and owners, project managers, and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, okay. So if I remember correctly, we whittled from 20 million down to 18 million on construction cost only.
Correct. I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
But the number is still gonna be over 20, I think.
Yes,
because-
I agree, because like you said,
Right.
the soft cost was never added in, and I don't think I ever heard that number. If it
Yeah,
is
it all-
in that report, I don't
It's
know.
in,
that it's,
it's in the report. It all came together like at the last minute, if you remember.
Yeah.
It was sort of our last meeting before town meeting, and the report hit the street, and it was, here we are,
Yeah.
So, but when we do a funding article, the whole thing would have to be in it. So,
Yep.
so that's an easy thing to do. So warrant closes the 28th.
Yeah.
And we're scheduled to have a meeting on the 22nd. So I think we need to get this to Heather. So I'm up for whatever the committee wants to do, but I'm happy to sort of draft these and send them to Heather on the committee's behalf prior to that, as long as there's a vote, I think, from the committee to do so. And I'm happy to send it along to the committee before I send it to Heather, however you folks want to do that. But I think Heather could use the extra time particularly with bond counsel to review it and to crunch the numbers on funding for, financing.
Okay, so
terms
what?
and-
Yeah. Now, when is the number going to be created? That's kind of what I was pushing towards when I asked about the construction cost versus soft cost.
I mean, we could try to get that. Let's find it right now.
Yeah, if you can find that soft
on-
cost,
It's on the internet. It's on the web. So let me see if I can come up with it while we're here.
so I remember Dave Blatt saying that, in the low 20 millions.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. Yeah.
And I say it matter of factly because it is what it is. We can't change the number except for maybe if construction costs drop by $5 a square foot by the time we actually build, maybe we'll get the numbers down just by savings during construction.
Right.
I hear
So
2x4s.
TCP. So I got the
2x4s $3 a piece.
Yeah, I heard 315 now. Yeah. That's good. All right, bear with me here. I got to look through a very lengthy document. This is going to be hard to find, guys. But hold on.
I thought there was a page or two that was a synopsis of all the financials.
There is.
But-
It's not searchable from what I can see
Oh, okay.
here. So it's a 500-page thing, and it's the table of contents. Table of contents isn't letting me. Boy.
For safe to say that we know it's in the low 20 millions.
Yeah,
And
for
maybe
sure. Yeah. Let me just bear with me here.
Okay.
Appendix C. Hold. I think what I'm in. I think I'm in an appendix of an appendix. Hold on.
Yeah, how many $100 per page did we pay for that?
Okay, here we go. Okay, let me just read this. Project construction cost estimate summary, 6.2, section 6.2 of the final report, which I don't have the date because I'd have to go back up, but I'll give you the date in a minute. But it says, and this is what's published right on the website on the TCP Building Design Committee town website page for everybody that's listening. During the course of this project, several construction cost estimates were developed. The final cost estimate is based on the enclosed final design development drawings, which were approved by the TCP Building Committee. Please refer to the final construction cost estimate developed on February 12th, 2021, included in Appendix E of this report. The construction cost estimate is based on the building programming, design development floor plans and site plans, which were approved by the TCP Building Committee. The construction estimate for the approved building design is $18,380,000. Okay, so that's hard dollars. Again, I'll repeat it, $18,380,000.
Excluding the soft costs.
Which excludes the soft costs. Adding soft cost brings the total estimated project cost to $23,570,000. Included in the cost analysis appendix are the additional cost-related documents, including comparisons between the three major estimates, recommended materials and finishes, FF&E, which is fixtures, furnishings, and equipment requested by user groups, and door and room finish schedules, all of which were used to develop the cost estimates. So the number that we have, I believe, is $23,570,000.
Yeah, that's what I saw too, and that's in page 31 of that document.
Right. So I think what we need to check on, the only caveat I'm going to say here is that we need to make sure that
You had mentioned the date. You had mentioned the date. I don't know if we want to mention that March 19th date. That's what I have for the date of the file.
for the final report. So thank you, Brian. So that this report was dated March 19th, 2021. Thanks, Brian. So the other thing I do want to check is I know that there was some what's the word I'm looking for? Escalation included in the estimates, which accounts for inflation, which accounts for the time it takes you to get to construction from when the estimate was first done. So if you're a year out, they add 3 or 4% or something like that. And so we should check to make sure that that number is using the right escalation amount. Because if we're beyond it, or if we're before that window, then we may want to just verify that. But that's the number that we're talking about here. And again, I think that number was more like 25 or 26 million before we just for the benefit of everybody listening, we had a construction cost of over 20 million when we first started the discussion last year, and that was the number that we were really focusing on. Not that we ignored soft costs, it's just that the soft costs, I think we quickly determined, were not something that could easily be. That's not where your big savings are going to occur. So that's sort of how that all evolved. So I think that's the number. We've now identified the report date as well. So let me just plug those in. So I have this. So I have to see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, borrow, or transfer a sum of money in the amount of $23,570,000 for the renovation of the TCP Passios building as outlined in the final DeGiorgio report dated March 21st, 2021.
Heather, do we need to add any financing costs or administrative costs to that number?
That's a good question. That's something I would talk to our financial advisor about, probably.
Yeah, okay. Because, we are talking about big numbers, but, usually when you're doing estimates like this, you round up, and, this one rounds up to 24 million, but 23,570 is a little easier to swallow than 25 million, but we don't want to cut ourselves short if it does get approved. We need to have sufficient cushion in there to make sure the project can be completed.
Mhm.
That's a good question. But when you borrow money, Heather, when you don't have to list the interest you pay on the borrowing, do you?
No,
No, that's valuable information that's presented. I mean, people are going to want to know, are we going to finance this over 20 years? We're going to finance it over 30 years. What interest rate are we likely to pay? What's the average taxpayer going to pay? That kind of thing. But that's not factored into the warrant article. It's just additional information, correct?
correct. That's why,
All right.
so with this final number, I would send all that information to our financial advisor who would do those projections and looking at the current rates, what our bonds, we have a good bond rating, so we should get a favorable rate. But what the current market is and all our options for length of term.
Okay.
So then the only real question going forward right at the moment is the multiplier for consecutive years, what that number should be, which could push it to the 24 million. I don't know. It depends on what that number is.
Yeah, so what I suggest that we do is maybe just query the architect, query DeGiorgio, just to see, we can give him a rough timetable of when we're thinking about when this would go for construction and start, and just make sure he thinks that number is, the escalation clause that's included in that number is adequate or too
Yeah,
high.
Heather, you're going to need that escalation number in there before they can process anything through our financial advisor. I would think you would, wouldn't you?
Yes, yep, I would.
Yeah. So we've got to have that number fairly quick.
Yeah, we can, I would think we could get a pretty quick answer on that. That's just a matter of comparing the what they included in that number to when we, the time to the time period that they have included in the number versus
So, yeah.
what we're expecting. go ahead, Brian.
Chair, I have on page 82 of the document, it does list the escalation.
Okay,
It says escalation 3% in year 2021, escalation 4% in year 2022, count
Okay.
6 months, and then escalation 4% year 2023,
Okay,
escalation 4% year 2024. So it does have that in the document, at least some escalation numbers to look at.
all right. 80, and why can't I get to the right page here?
So it's page 81 or
Oh, I see. Yeah.
82
All right.
at the bottom.
So that's interesting. They go out to 2024. Are they just escalating because they're expecting it to be a multi-year project?
Now,
Let's
that's
just make
not a,
sure. Go ahead.
Greg, that's not a cumulative escalator, is it? It's just whatever the balance of the construction or the overall cost first year is expected at maybe 3% more, and then what's left in the second year might be 4% more, or is it based on groundbreaking versus plus time to build?
That's what I'm wondering.
Because you can have a 15% escalator if it takes you
Yeah.
4 years to get to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, that's, yeah. Where are you seeing that, Brian?
So it's on.
Oh, I
page
see it. I see it.
82
I
at the
see it.
bottom.
Yeah, I see it. I see it.
Escalation.
So they've got.
So
It
it's the
doesn't look like,
subtotal at 17 million, and then the escalation adds another 500,000, and then another 360,000. But I don't think they add that escalation of the year 2023 in there. I think
no,
just
they didn't.
project
They
it.
just
They left
said
it
that.
blank.
See, that's what I'm saying. So like if,
And it
okay,
got
so
up to
I
18.
think we're okay here because it looks like they assumed a construction start sometime halfway through 2022, which is probably accurate. If we were to succeed at fall town meeting, you know, you would think you could break ground sometime in July of, you know, in summer of 2022. And it looks like that's what's included here. So I think that's reasonable.
And they
But
would even
I
get
still
the
think
construction.
it behooves us. Heather, either you or me, if I don't have John's contact, but I think it would behoove us to just send a quick email saying, listen, we're putting a relative to, I know it's not as new, it's not related to the 54K that he's working on, but if we could just get a clarifying email that that this estimate of 23.5 would be valid, assuming a construction start of mid 2022. I think it's a simple email. And hopefully we can get a yes or a no, or a yes or a, well, you could detract this, or you could add, or you should add this. But the way I'm reading this, per Brian's reference here to page 82, it looks to me like that's what the assumption was.
And I think they also list that the construction is reduced to 12 months, that the construction duration was corrected to 14 months and reduced to 12 months. So I think that also helps figure out the number.
Yeah.
And that number was based on vacating the building so they could not have to phase it, correct? That was one of the, it wasn't much savings, but it was some savings.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we told them that we worked with them on. Yeah.
Right.
Greg, I just drafted something I'll send to you. I don't know if you want to share this.
You sent it to Gmail because I still don't have
Yeah.
access to my.
I just sent it.
Okay.
That's definitely going to be tweaked, but has all the components of
Oh, okay. You drafted.
borrowing
Okay, good.
language.
Yep. Let me just. share the screen.
I think one thing we have to figure out too is the address. That's why I blinked that
Okay,
out.
I see. Yep,
Mhm.
okay.
Mhm.
Good luck with that.
Mhm. That parcel has to be separated out.
Can you guys see that? Draft article right here.
Can you blow it up a little bit?
No.
Maybe not. Okay, that's fine. No problem.
It's full screen. But you can see it's a draft article right here. It's funny, I usually get a box around the screen. So I'll just read it. To see if the town will vote to appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money to be expended under the direction of the TC Passios Building Committee for renovation of the TC Passios Building to be used for town offices, school uses, and community uses to be located at blank Massachusetts Avenue. We'll get that, we'll fill in that address. Lunenburg, Mass. 01462, to appropriate by borrowing 23 million even, and to meet
I
this
love,
appropriate.
yeah.
Yeah, I see.
I just put it on, plugged in a number.
Yeah. So we'll fill in the correct number, but, and to meet this appropriation of the select board and town treasurer are, excuse me, and to meet this appropriation, the select board and town treasurer are authorized to borrow said sum under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and further provided that any appropriation hereunder shall be subject to and contingent upon an affirmative vote of the town to exempt the amounts required for the payment of interest and principal on said borrowing from the limitations on taxes imposed by Massachusetts General Law 59, Section 21C, Proposition 2.5, or to take any other action relative thereto. So that would be the wording with all of the legal references and references to contingency of town votes and things like that.
Right, and the only adjustment, as we all just agreed, is the number needs to be updated.
Yeah, the number would be updated to the 23,570, and that would be confirmed with DeGiorgio that the escalation clauses are correct, and that we'd fill in the address.
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
Heather, has there ever been a separate mailing address for the Passios building, or any kind of address separation? I know legally the land is not separated, but how else do you identify it?
I'm actually not sure.
Maybe we should say, Heather, instead
Let
of to
me
be
see.
located at Massachusetts Avenue, maybe we should say which is located at Massachusetts Avenue.
Which is like, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
just because we're not copy. I'm just
How
gonna
about just go a little bit step further on the town-owned property on Massachusetts Avenue? Or presently occupied by the TC Passios building. That further identifies it clearly.
to be used for town uses, school uses, and community uses, to be located at. Say that again, Dave.
On the property of the present location of the TC Passios building.
Yeah.
Town-owned land. Now, I did two things and now I've forgotten both of them. I think identifying it by the location of the building on town land on Massachusetts Avenue is pretty descriptive of where we're talking.
Something like,
Unless somebody can come up with a subdivision street number before November.
yeah,
I think, yeah, 1025 is always the address used there. But the problem is the parcel
yeah.
information.
So we should limit it. We should definitely limit it to, limit it, be specific that it's the TC Passios building to be used for town offices, school uses, and community uses, which is located on town land at whatever the ad, we'll verify this, but 1025 Massachusetts Avenue, Lunenburg, Mass. 01462. So that just says this is the TCP Passios building located on town land at. So it's only one of the buildings located. We're not looking for carte blanche on the whole thing. So make sense?
Yes.
And this speaks to the issue that we talked about very early on in our meetings about the need one of these days to separate these properties out so that they're legal separate entities. But that's for another day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm good with that article with the verification of the dollar number and the street number. Should be good.
So this would be the second article. I don't have to type this, but the first article will be an update article to give the cost estimate for the new construction alternative. And I'll with the committee's permission, I'll just we've done this in the past. That's a pretty simple wording. I'll just duplicate the wording we've done for other update articles in the past.
Yeah.
And then okay. So then
just Greg,
Go
if
ahead.
I may.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, the update article obviously is going to include just an update on everything too, not just the new construction too.
Yeah, but most of what we're doing is
I'm just thinking more of an update article, which will include the cost
yeah,
of-
yeah. I probably won't be specific with that. I'll just say it's an update, and
Okay.
and then we'll talk to it at the on the town floor,
Thanks.
town meeting floor.
Greg, is it feasible if the town moderator is okay with it to really do the full presentation for both articles 2 and 3 in that presentation article? And then as they're taken up individually, field further questions?
Well, I think that would be one of the reasons to Brian's point of making it a real generic update article. Then we'd have the we'd have the ability to give a broader presentation there.
Right, right. And then, in conversation with Tim, ahead of time, and I think he would agree with this, as long as the information we present in that first article is sufficient to give town meeting a good feel for what both articles are proposing, then it would not limit, but it would segue into those next 2 articles without having to go through it all again. For the questions to be answered, yes, and debate, definitely. But then, help expedite the process for Article 2 and 3.
Yeah. Yeah. So Article 3. This is the one that we thought we needed select board input on. And so not sure what to do here.
Did you have any feedback from them or no?
Well, I did. I mean, I kind of gave you a summary of my conversation with the chairperson.
Can we put something together and ask that it be discussed at the next Board of Selectmen's meeting, that it can possibly be discussed, and that should still give it time to get back to us before the meeting, just before the close of the warrant.
Yep.
We could add it to next week's agenda
Okay.
if that's
Yeah,
sufficient.
all of this stuff, the sooner we can accomplish it, the better off we're going to be.
Oh, you're right. So this is going to be an article. This is going to be an article almost verbatim of what the original article was back in spring of 2019, correct?
That's what I
As in,
thought.
The
create a
first,
committee.
To see if the town will vote basically, I'm summarizing here, but we'll get the legalese right, but basically the nuts and bolts of this will be to see if the town will vote to fund the design, the preparation of design, development drawings and construction cost estimates for the construction of a new building.
And use the description of the property that we used in Article 2.
Yeah,
And put a dollar amount to it. Yes, I agree.
we need to put a dollar amount to it, yeah.
And I don't think you were far off, Greg, in the last meeting, is saying that it's going to be very similar to what we spent
I mean,
for the
yeah.
renovation.
Yeah, I mean, we might be able to get, yeah, I mean, some of the work will presumably have been done in this $54,000 number, but basically what we're asking the town to do is advance what we're doing now to design development phase. And it would be the funds for that, so. All right. I'll put that language together. I mean, I'll just grab the language basically from the original article.
Yep.
And change things to match the the new construction and things like that, change the references to renovation and things like that.
Sounds good.
the meeting with the select board, is it just a representative or the full committee?
It's up to the committee. That's next Tuesday. Let me just see what my calendar is actually.
Do we have to be in person or is that Zoom if it's the whole committee?
That's Zoom, right, Heather?
We're both in person and Zoom, and typically we ask, where the chairman's asked that people that are attending as an appointment be in person. But
Okay.
If there's an accommodation that needs to be met, I'm sure that's possible.
Well, I don't want to share my, hold on one second.
Yeah, take your share down before you go into
Yeah, let me do that.
your wife for the next 45 days.
Okay, I think I've stopped share, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Tuesday. I think that's okay. For me, anyway. I don't know that we need to poke. Well, it's up to the committee. What do you think? I mean, do we want to ask them for a joint meeting or do we want to? Maybe it would be good. See if they'd be willing. We could do. We could advertise it as a joint meeting, and if we don't have a quorum, we just won't call it.
Yeah, Greg, I think that's the safest way to go with it. I'm still trying to sort out my my schedule right now. I that will stretch out my stay in Massachusetts a little bit longer, but that might not be a bad thing. So,
All right, I mean, we can ask. I mean, I talked to Tom about this, and we'll see where it goes. But we'll. So, all right. I mean, Heather, what are your thoughts on that?
It's really up to the committee.
Yeah.
Like you said,
Okay.
I mean, having a spokesperson, I think is good to direct conversation, but
Well, I'll pencil in being there.
commentary.
I'll definitely be there. And if I think if the select board will welcome it, I'm hearing from the committee. I think that it would be that we'd love to schedule a joint public hearing and have a quorum there if we can.
yeah, Greg, I'll put a motion in just to cover this. I make a motion that we first of all request and post a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen next Tuesday, whatever that date is, 14th, 13th,
Yep.
14th.
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 Secondly, if we do not have a quorum, authorize the chair to represent the committee to the select board in this matter.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion was made by Dave, seconded by Brian. Is there any discussion? Okay, that's fine. We'll call the vote on that. I'll start with Christina.
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
aye for me. All right, so I guess Heather, let me know on that.
Well, I'll let you know tomorrow, and because it would have to be posted tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it would be the same Zoom information that's on every one of our agendas. So you can just look at.
Okay, all right, great.
Is there any way to make a request that if we do go in, we go in earlier? The only reason I say that is my husband's in Louisiana right now. So just so I could put the kids to bed. I wouldn't have to have my mother-in-law do it. But if it doesn't work out that way, that's fine. Just to make it a little easier on her.
Heather, is there a
Okay.
long list of appointments that night yet?
There's probably 2 ahead of this one, so probably around 7:30. I'm estimating.
Oh, okay. So could I come later, or do I have to be there at the start of it?
Well, I think Christina, just
You
do
wouldn't
that.
Get there at 7.
You just, if they post, so we'll post it for a time certain. Heather will have to get that to
Okay.
me after she reviews it with the current agenda, this current scheduled items, and also probably with the chair. And then if, just do the best you can. I mean, obviously, everybody, we understand where you're at with it. We'll certainly have another member there, presumably, because we'll have Michael Ray there, but assuming his planning to attend the select board meeting anyway. So I would think we'd have a quorum anyway, but so we'll do the best. Heather will do the best she
Christina,
can.
I can't imagine the chair of the Board of Selectmen not allowing you to participate through Zoom if the rest of the board is in person. They're running a hybrid meeting anyway.
Yeah, I
And
think
I know
Okay.
their preference is for, meeting participants to be in person, but, I mean, the law states it can be both.
Okay. I'll do my best to be there. I just wanted to forewarn that I'll either probably, depending on the time, just be coming right before it, or if we meet, I'm probably going to run right after.
Sure. Understood. I understand that. Believe me, I understand that.
Yeah, we're all volunteers that actually have a life outside of municipal government. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have those articles. I'll pass that wording on to Heather, formally requesting that it be included in the agenda, and then we'll post the meeting, assuming that they agree. We'll post the meeting for a joint meeting. We'll post a meeting next Tuesday jointly with the select board and go from there. Flush the issue out. I think that's good. Like in the spirit of communication, transparency with the town. I think that's a good way to go. And if we're going to go and we're going to do these articles in the fall, we want to get the word out anyway. So, and I'm not trying to say that people don't review these meetings on YouTube, but I'm not sure we get the same audience that the select board does. So, but I will say,
the other thing,
I will say that the Ledger is great in covering our committee, and we do appreciate that coverage. So, thank you for that. I know they're on.
The other thing it does, Greg, is it brings the select board up to date immediately on what we're proposing, and keeps them in the loop going into a special town meeting, which is, as we know here, a very compressed time frame now.
Right.
So, we don't want to make some decisions that have to be approved by the Board of Selectmen and have to wait 2 weeks to get them to say yay or nay or so on and so forth. We'll get it all done right away.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. All right, sounds good. I do have to say, I have a hard stop here at 7. I have a Bolton Planning Board meeting that I have to get to at 7. So that's about 12 minutes out. Let's see. I think we're good with warrant articles. Are we ready to move on?
I am.
Okay. Brian sent around minutes. I'm having again a terrible time
I don't
here.
think we have any for tonight.
Oh, we don't have any? I thought you'd sent
Oh.
some, no?
I think we already did that last week.
Oh, we did that last week.
Right?
That's right. We did that
We're all
last week. So
set.
we don't have any. So I did need to update. Shoot, I should have done this first. So the minutes clerk that we had is not doing minutes. So they've correct, right, Heather? You've posted that position again?
No, so TCP, I thought that was Megan who came to our last meeting.
Okay, maybe. Well, she came to a meeting 2 meetings ago, but I didn't see her last meeting.
And maybe that it was on Zoom last time, wasn't it?
It was, and I
Yeah.
had told her that I just haven't heard from her. So I had emailed her and gave her a heads up that it was going to be Zoom and it was going to be recorded.
Okay.
But I didn't hear anything. So, okay, so Megan's still on board?
Yeah.
As far as you know? Okay, all right, great. That's good. Okay, so I guess we don't have any minutes. I'll follow up with Megan and see where we're at with those. Does anybody have any correspondence to or from the committee? I mean, we've talked about correspondence from to the select board, but anybody have anything to report from the community or anything?
Yeah, Greg, you alluded to it earlier in the meeting. There was some, I won't call it pushback, but concern about the compressed time going into special town meeting. But we've discussed that already this evening, and I think we've agreed that we need to push forward with this as hard as possible to be prepared for special town meeting and be willing right up until town meeting itself to pull the articles if we feel we're not ready, but move forward steadily until that point. And I'm sure we'll get that echoed from finance committee meetings between now and November. That's all. The only comment I'd like to remind everybody that, that may come in the near future with the public hearing and so on.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair. Yep, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Future meeting schedule. So we have a meeting scheduled for 2 weeks from today, which is the 22nd of September. And I don't have October up here. Let me so if we were going to continue with the Wednesday theme in October, we might look to do something on October 13th and October 27th. How does that look for folks?
So you do the 27th and then skip 3 weeks all the way to the 13th.
Well, I just picked up on the 2nd and 4th.
Yeah, I think, Greg, let's plug another one in there, because that's going to be the crunch time.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Do you want to put the 6th or do you want to do the 20th? Or do you want to do like the 6th, 20th, and 27th?
I'm not gonna be able to make the 6th.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go with the 13th, 20th, and 27th, only because, if we don't have the information back from DeGiorgio that we need for September 22nd, all we're going to be talking about there is verifying that the articles are getting in to the warrant, and then the crunch will be 13th, 20th, and 27th.
Okay. I'm all right with that. Anybody else have any, I know there's 3 members not here, but we have to just do the best we can here. Anybody else have any issues with that? Okay.
The only other thing I would say is if we get into middle of October and we miss either the 20th or the 27th because of quorum, I think we need to schedule another meeting within 3 days, if at all possible, to get it, to legally post it and reschedule it, because we can't afford to miss meetings going into special town meeting or we're going to get our heads was on a platter.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Okay. That's fine. So, but so for now, our future meetings are going to be September 22nd,
Yep.
October 13th, October 20th, and October 27th at 5:30. And we
And
will.
that would I'm sorry, that would potentially give us one meeting, or if we need more, but at least one regular meeting in November ahead of special town meeting. And I think we could set that date a little bit later.
Yeah, that's fine. And then what I just was going to say that they will all be Zoom meetings. Maybe we'll decide that we want to do one in person, but for now, either way, we'll make sure that they're hybrid.
Yep.
But for now, so they will be Zoom meetings. There may be an opportunity to meet in person if we decide, but that won't prohibit anybody, including committee members or members of the public, from participating remotely. So that's the way we'll play on that.
Just as a heads up, I'm going to be late to the 22nd meeting. So if you want to reach out to the other committee members to make sure they'll be in attendance,
Okay.
you have a quorum. I'm going to be late to that one though.
I'll send an email out kind of summarizing this to everybody, since we didn't have a good a full board here tonight. Okay.
Quick question to Heather. I'm trying to remember, did Finance Committee decide they're going to have a public hearing before a special town meeting or no? Is that date would have been set already?
Yes, they did. It's I believe October 14th.
Okay. Just so everybody knows that, we'll have 2 meetings before FinCom has a chance to put their claws into it.
Yeah. Should we plan to attend that meeting, Dave, or the 14th, or?
Let me get a feel from the committee. We meet tomorrow night, and let me see what I get for a vibe, and we'll go from there.
All right.
I'm guessing at least you as a representative, if you can, yes. And they may specifically request it at tomorrow's meeting.
Okay, I'm running into a busy, so 5:30 meetings are not usually a problem for me, but the later ones are. I have a pretty busy workload public meeting schedule. Like tonight, I have 2 presentations to make at Bolton tonight in a few minutes. So we may have to send another representative to that, but we'll figure that out. I think at one point Michael Ray had suggested he might be willing to do that to one committee at least. So but we'll talk about that in the future. So keep us posted on that.
Okay.
All right.
We cleaned up.
I think so. I think that's it for future meeting schedule anyway. So is there any public comment from the public? I don't see any members of the public except for Heather and the ledger. So is there any public comment from members of the committee?
I'm good.
All right.
No.
All right, excellent. I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn at 6:57 p.m.
Second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor, roll call vote. Christina,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and an aye for me. Thanks very much, everybody.
Have a good night. I think we
Good
accomplished
night.
more.
Yeah, no, it was a good meeting. I appreciate everybody's input on that. See you in a few weeks.
Good night.